Welcome back to MedTech Insights. I'm joined today by Nate Doemling, President at HiArc, who will be discussing how startups can avoid the engineering pitfalls of diagnostic product development. Nate, can you start by telling me about your role at HiArc and how you became involved in this area?
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. And again, I appreciate you having me on. My name is Nate Doemling. I'm the president of HiArc, as you said. So we are a CDMO firm, so contract design, contract development, and manufacturing firm. And me personally, I have nearly 30 years of experience in the medical device industry with both OEMs and CDMO firms. So this gives me a unique perspective, seeing as how I've been on both sides of the table. And I tend to look at this interchange a bit differently than most. HiArc as a company has over 45 years of experience designing, developing, and bringing complex medical instruments to market, specifically in the IVD diagnostic space. As we look forward at HiArc, we're looking to leverage more of our expertise and experience to broaden our scope in the broader medtech world going forward. And lastly, really our customers at HiArc recognize us as being experts in delivering customized solutions, really engineered around our clients' needs. We don't have a one-size-fits-all approach at HiArc.
And with startups, what role does HiArc play in helping startups navigate diagnostic product development?
Well, we support customers from concept phase all the way through commercialization and manufacturing and every way in between. So we can handle the entire product development from beginning to end, or we can just come in and support a startup if they're having an issue or they're having a technical problem. So it's, again, not a one-size-fits-all approach. We can customize our offering to what the customer needs.
Would you say there are any unique challenges in diagnostic product development compared to other projects?
Yeah, good question. Good question, Oliver. For me, complexity is the big one, right? Diagnostic instruments are very complex, and nearly all of the engineering disciplines are involved, from electromechanical to software to systems. The complexity of the instrument also involves a need for specialized expertise in the area of optics, robotics, and fluidics. A lot of partners tend not to have these capabilities in-house. We're pleased to say at HiArc we have a lot of expertise in optics, robotics, and fluidics, and we're able to offer that as a solution to our customers. These complex systems make the design, the manufacturing, and the ramp up into full production even more challenging for companies to launch a product. And then lastly is the regulatory side of things. You know, the creation of the design history files needed for 510(k) regulatory submissions is very complex. And I've seen startup companies in the past kind of overlook the requirement of the regulatory and try to go back retroactively and create them, which is nearly impossible. So this often increased both time and budget and can be a huge stumbling block to companies if they don't incorporate this in the process from the beginning.
And what are some of the most common mistakes you see early stage life science startups make when developing diagnostic instruments?
Yeah, good question, Oliver. From my experience, the big one is not doing sufficient market research up front to define the product requirements and to define what the user needs from the product. Again, from my experience, the costliest programs often occur when the definition of the key features of the product shift during the design phase. Now, naturally, we expect the products will evolve over time in development, but those that see fundamental changes in the requirements cause a lot of problems in the long run and eventually are more expensive and sometimes result in failures or issues to launch.
And can you share any real-world examples of, without naming names, obviously, of startups running into costly setbacks in this process?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to name any names, Oliver. So yeah, over the years, we have worked with a number of startups, and unfortunately, we have seen some common mistakes really around three key themes. Number one is lack of feasibility testing. This is typically performed early in the process to determine if the instrument concept is viable before committing to a full-scale development. Evaluations like this typically include, the technical aspects, including the design, safety, efficacy, particularly efficacy surrounding the reagent, as well as the commercial elements. We've seen a lot of companies neglect this upfront in their research, and that sets them up for big problems down the road when they try and launch the product. Secondly is scope creep, right? We hear a lot about scope creep. In the development program, it's clear and critical to have a definition of what the goals of an instrument are. Adding new features or requirements to an instrument is not unusual, but doing so without adjusting the timelines, the budget, or resources is a common risk that we see leads to delays, cost overruns, and again, potentially a project not launching or failing if not managed properly. And then the third, probably last most important thing is DFM, otherwise known as the design for manufacturing. We've seen a lot of programs ignore this, and this often leads to expensive late-stage redesigns, retooling, material substitutions, or worse yet, delays or quality issues or yield issues in the field. So really, really important to do DFM early in the design cycle.
And on the other side of things, are there any success stories you can share where a startup avoided pitfalls by doing the right things from the beginning?
Yeah, and I'm probably not going to be able to name any specific names once again, Oliver, but our engineers have worked with many successful startups over the years. Generally speaking, here's what they did well. Number one, they built a strong team with a great idea, and they secured sufficient funding, of course, to ensure that they have a runway of funding to support the growth. Number two, they chose the right design and manufacturing partner early on and engaged them throughout the design cycle, most namely in the conceptual phase where it's most important. And then lastly, and again, probably most importantly, don't be afraid to fail. This was something that I think Steve Jobs said years ago. You can't be afraid to fail fast and iterate, because it's an important part of the product development process, and you generate a lot of learnings by failing. The key thing is you got to fail fast, right?
Mm-hmm. And what best practices should startups follow to design for manufacturability and reliability from the outset?
Yeah. So another really good question. I think the most important thing is to start early. Too many times DFM is an afterthought. The old adage of designing a product and throwing it over the wall to manufacturing, that just doesn't work anymore. So DFM really needs to start early in the design process. It's a collaborative process and needs to start in the conceptualization phase in order to be successful. Secondly, another big lesson learned is to ensure that all the stakeholders are fully aligned. Again, aligning on the product goals, requirements, and performance from the outset is really, really important. And then third, it's important to resist the urge to do everything at once. You need to take the time to prototype the medical device. You need to take the time to prototype the device with the reagents. And that's really important to be successful.
And finally, if you could give one piece of advice to a founding team building their first diagnostic platform, what would it be?
Number one, be relentless in your focus, right? Designing products of this complexity are very challenging. There's going to be bumps along the road. There's going to be failures. There's going to be setbacks. You can't give up. You got to stay focused and be persistent. So that's probably the most important thing. Number two, communication is absolutely key. You have to have a good process to communicate across all teams and with all stakeholders. Probably in a startup, that's going to include communication with the investors. At HiArc, one of our core values revolves around our commitment to transparency. So we're open and honest with our customers, and we talk to them about what's possible and what's not early in the design process, and that really could be the difference along the way. And then third, I think this might be a little redundant from what we talked about before, but I think it's really important to bring the design and manufacturing partners into the process early. You know, at HiArc, we're often asked to perform what we call design maturity assessments. So where a client or a startup brings us in to assess their design, to help them understand if they're ready for production or ready for prototyping. And again, consistent with our culture, we're transparent in our feedback to the customers. And again, that helps them get back on track and make sure they have a product that's going to be destined to success when it launches.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's everything. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Oliver. Appreciate the time. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.